Okay, so you should have mitosis v meiosis in your contents page. You write that at the top of the paper, and then I took a circle and I just drew it around here. And I'm hoping that you will recognize this diagram. So we start like this, and then this, and then this, 1p. If you recognize this, it's because we've covered it before, and it's called, as you know, this is the cell cycle. Okay? And the cell cycle, we have G1, which is where the cell grows and does its normal stuff. And then we've got the S phase. And the S phase, that's the one, when we're talking about the cell cycle, that's the big deal, because the S phase is where we start with DNA. And by the end of the S phase, we have done semi-conservative DNA replication, and we have doubled the amount of DNA. We've made two exact copies of the original DNA that we started off with. And then if you recall, there's like a checkpoint to make sure that the DNA has been copied properly. There's no mistakes. If there are mistakes, we go back to the beginning of the S phase. We fix it if we can. If we can't fix it, the cell will kind of do that self-destruct bit, and then it will go through G2. It will kind of get its wits about it, go back to normal, do normal cell stuff, and then we'll have another checkpoint, and then we'll have PMAT, which are the 4 stages of mitosis. Okay, so if you remember, P, because we need to know the stages of mitosis, P stands for prophase, when the cell coils up and the DNA coils up and makes chromosomes. M stands for metaphase, where the chromosomes line up in the middle and attach themselves to spindle fibers. A stands for anaphase, and anaphase is where, remember those fibers, like the fishing lines, they get shorter and they pull the chromosomes to opposite sides of the cell. And then T stands for telophase, where the nuclear membrane forms around the chromosomes and they uncoil, and then the cell starts to separate into 2. So those are the stages of mitosis, and you need to know them, and you need to know them in order. Okay, remember what do puppies need? They need a PMAT. Okay, that's mitosis. And mitosis only happens in things called somatic cells. What is a somatic cell? It is a body cell. So your muscle cells, your skin cells, your epithelial cells, your white blood cells. These are called body cells. They are somatic cells. Okay, so far so good. What I want to do now is I want to look at what happens to the chromosomes in a little more simplistic view, but it will make sense. So I took a penny, right? I took a penny and I drew this. Okay. So you know that we are the product of our parents' genetic material. So half your DNA comes from mom and half your DNA comes from dad. You also know that when the chromosomes coil up to make, when the DNA coils up to make chromosomes, you know that it makes 46 chromosomes. So 23 of those chromosomes came from mom, 23 of those chromosomes came from dad. I'm not about to draw 46 chromosomes in there, but I will draw 1. from mum, right? And yeah, I'm going to do gender stereotypes. I'm going to draw one from mum in pink, and I'm going to draw one from dad in blue. So what you've got to imagine is there's 22 more pairs of these, okay? And at the end of the S phase, we know that we've got double the amount of chromosomes. So I've got twice the amount of the blue ones, and I've got twice the amount of the pink ones, okay? And then this cell goes through PMAT, and it will split into two cells. And this cell will have one blue one each, and this cell will have one pink one each. So when we look at the cells at the end of mitosis, you will notice that the chromosomes are still in pairs, right? And there are two of them. So one thing that we can say about mitosis is that at the end of it, we end up with two cells. We start with one, we end with two, and we can say that these cells are identical. They all have a complete set of DNA, half of which came from mum, half of which came from dad. That's what we've covered so far. That's absolutely normal. So when you cut yourself and your skin forms new skin cells to, cover the wound, this is what's happening. And all the new skin cells that are produced are exactly the same as the ones they came from. Okay, that's mitosis. Mitosis. Meiosis looks like this. Okay, so we're going to start with one cell. And I guess I should say this. Mitosis is somatic cells, it's body cells. So meiosis, right, here, this produces gametes. So there are two types of cells in your body. There are somatic cells, which are body cells, and then there are gametes. And gametes are your sex cells. So this is how we produce sperm cells and egg cells. Okay? Your gametes. Okay. And they start off life just like funnily enough, just like any other body cell. So cells in the ovary, cells in the testes, there are these specific cells, and they've got one job. And their one job is to produce sperm cells or egg cells, dependent upon whether you're male or female. And so step number one looks a lot like mitosis, because the cells make copies of their DNA. And we end up with something like this. We go through kind of like a regular cell division, okay? And then these two split. So we've now got two cells that look exactly like the ones they came from. So you say this part of it, meiosis is just like mitosis. Then something different happens, because without making copies of the DNA, the cells split. Okay? So they end up, so this chromosome ends up in that one. This chromosome ends up there. These chromosomes end up here. Now you notice something that's a little different, because we started off with one cell and we ended up with 1, 2, 3, 4. That is a really, 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 really easy way to decide if you are looking at a picture of mitosis or meiosis. If you start with one and end up with two, it's mitosis. If you start with one and you end up with four, it's meiosis. You will also notice one other huge difference. These cells are not identical to the original one. In fact, these four cells, which are gametes, so this could be egg cell, egg cell, egg cell, egg cell, and this was a cell that was in the ovary, or sperm cell, sperm cell, sperm cell, sperm cell, and this was a cell that was in a testicle. These are your gametes down here. And the biggest difference between mitosis and meiosis is that the amount of DNA, the amount of chromosomes in gametes is half what it is if it's in a body cell. So you'll notice here, let me write this in red, right? Chromosome number is halved. Okay, the chromosome number is halved in meiosis. All right, I'm going to give you two more words here. If your chromosomes are in pairs, let me get better. Right. So if the chromosomes are in pairs, so there would be 46 in total. This is called diploid. Right? But over here, you will see the chromosomes are singles. Down there. Okay, the chromosomes are singles. That is called haploid. H-A-P-L-O-I-D. Right? Haploid. Or halved. Okay, so the last bit is, why is this such a big deal? Why are our chromosomes halved? And then you have to think about, what is the job of a gamete? Sperm cells want one thing. Sperm cells want to find an egg cell. Egg cells want one thing. Egg cells want to find a sperm cell. And that's the topic of the next little video. We're going to look at, why is it important that gametes have halved chromosomes, and what happens at fertilization.